All right, in this video, I want to get into controlled opposition and the origin of the scripted conspiracy theorist movement led by Alex Jones that was designed from its inception to lead to censorship. And we're seeing that play out in real time now, every day, more and more. But going back to the beginning, you can see here that Infowars officially launched on March 6th, 1999. And that's very interesting because Stanley Kubrick died on March 7th, 1999, one day later. And it's tough because there isn't a lot of information on the internet about when precisely Infowars was launched. Just like there isn't precise information on the actual time that Stanley Kubrick died. But due to the time difference between England and Austin, Texas, it's theoretically possible that Infowars was launched right as Stanley Kubrick died. Because there's a 5 or 6 hour time difference, depending on the time of year it is, whether it's daylight savings time and things like that. But if that Infowars website was launched at night in Austin, Texas, it's entirely possible that it was launched right as Stanley Kubrick allegedly died. And I say allegedly because we will never know for sure whether or not he actually died that night. They can come out in the media and say anybody died, and we would have no idea whether or not it really happened. So it's not just Stanley Kubrick, it's any of these high-profile individuals that they say died without any kind of visual evidence of that for us to see. We kind of just have to take their word for it. And so I can't sit here and say that I know for sure that he died that day, for real. Regardless, though, in the context of the Infowars launch, we can see how Stanley Kubrick's death was a symbolic ritual sacrifice designed to power the launch of Infowars. Especially when you put his role in the conspiracy theorist controlled opposition movement into the equation. His films were a fuse that was lit way back when he first started directing them and putting them out there. And of course, I say he could just be the front man for a much larger organization that was actually doing the work behind the scenes. And then, he's the one that's the public face of it. He's the one on the movie sets. But the real magic is taking place in the editing rooms where they're lacing all of these films with stuff that is designed to subconsciously influence you. But that's all movies, right? It's not just Kubrick. However, from the very beginning, these films are a fuse that's slowly burning. And eventually they explode into the public consciousness, into this conspiracy theorist movement on September 11, 2001, when everybody sees the monolith at quote-unquote ground zero where those two towers were destroyed. As soon as that connection is made, the questions begin. Wait, hold on a second. The monolith from that 2001 A Space Odyssey film was at September 11, 2001? What's going on there? And by design, then, all of his other films kind of neatly fit into the conspiracy narrative in a way where Kubrick is kind of an ambassador for it now. Everybody talks about him in conspiracy circles. It doesn't really matter what the context is. Everybody is discussing him in some way. He's a central figure. Mainly due to the fact that there is the conspiracy theory surrounding his death that it was intentional because he revealed too much in Eyes Wide Shut, and they took him out for it, right? His death, as they say here, is 4 days after screening a final cut of Eyes Wide Shut for his family and stars and various studio executives. As that story goes, which is likely a contrived, planted story tying into all of this, he was killed for Eyes Wide Shut and what he revealed there. When you actually go watch Eyes Wide Shut, there's nothing of any kind of consequence revealed in that film that would get anyone in trouble. It's more the symbolic, metaphorical Eyes Wide Shut. This is his last film, and that's what you are. You will think you're awake, but your eyes are actually wide shut through the propaganda that is surrounding all of this stuff. But as you get into different contexts with Kubrick, some people will treat him as if he's some kind of genius hero, right? That was so far beyond everyone else, this master chess player. He was putting all this stuff in the films as a way to wake you up, right? In ways that were beyond even the controllers could figure out. And that's just ridiculous, of course. But that's designed to get you hooked into everything that's imbued within the films, so that all of a sudden you're reading, Robert Anton Wilson, Philip K. Dick, Aleister Crowley. Then you're into Kabbalah and you're reading all of the other alchemical stuff. You're just sucked into that world that's kind of more popular now in New Age circles. They've taken all that stuff and put it into that context. But it gets you into that general state of mind. It's a pipeline into that. And that's part of how they have the contingent of people that are hyper-focused on Kubrick, who suck you into the idea that it's all just this organic synchronicity taking place. And in that way, it kind of becomes a new religion. It's this movies are enlightening me religion. And you watch all the media and you see the next film to find the clues, and in this way, you're discovering the truth somehow, right? But my point is, Kubrick is central to this. He's always at the center of these narratives, no matter which side you're on. And of course, then, as a part of the launch of Infowars, which is what this is, right? It's an info war on the internet that they are waging against you. Stanley Kubrick's death is tied directly into the launch of it. These two things happening right next to each other. The launch of Infowars and Stanley Kubrick's alleged death. This is from NPR, how Alex Jones helped mainstream conspiracy theories into American life. A headline like this is very innocent, like it just happened out of nowhere. Oh, he seized on all of these things that were just organically happening, and somehow he made it into the mainstream. It's like, no, this was by design. For example, this is Alex Jones on The View, right? Okay, if this guy was in any way dangerous to the power structure and he was saying something they didn't want him to say, do you think they would put him on The View for regular soccer moms to see? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so outrageously ridiculous that they would think you're so stupid that you would not see through this. I mean, maybe that's hindsight talking, and it wouldn't be as obvious as it was unfolding, but come on, guys. They put him on The View, right? So a headline like this is so disingenuous. What are you talking about? ABC helped mainstream conspiracy theories by putting him on The View. So it's like, no, it's not Alex Jones doing this through his own doing. This is a planned, scripted thing where he was specifically created as a character to mainstream conspiracy theories so that they could later be censored. And his character serves that purpose throughout his entire existence. And then it went to the next level when they started taking him to court in that theatrical production, saying they're taking all this money from him because of what he said, all of these misinformation claims, fake news, the whole thing, right? They're establishing the precedent that you can be sued for saying these things. And, they're establishing the precedent that, yes, you get deplatformed when you say the wrong thing. We take you off the internet. This is okay. And they spin the story to make that acceptable to the mind that's not aware of what's really going on behind the scenes. Then you have Alex Jones and Donald Trump. A fateful alliance draws scrutiny. The Infowars host tormented Sandy Hook families and helped elect President Donald J. Trump. His role in the January 6th Capitol attack is now of growing interest to congressional investigators. By design, Alex Jones eventually fused into Donald Trump, and Donald Trump became the conspiracy theorist president, which mainstreamed all of it on a completely different level, right? Alex Jones is kind of this fringe figure that, yes, the mainstream is promoting, but the entire purpose of Alex Jones was to eventually create Donald Trump and his platform and everything he was surrounded by. Because again, the whole purpose of Donald Trump, or at least one of the many purposes, is to eventually create censorship. And you can see how they're doing that right now with how they're portraying his character. I mean, they are quite literally painting him as Hitler, kind of a figure doing similar things along those lines. And so, in the aftermath of everything they do, it will become very acceptable to censor anything associated with MAGA. Because it represents, quote unquote, hate. And in that way, they will create the conditions for censorship of hate speech, and all the truth that is kind of hiding within the sensationalized version of it that Alex Jones and Donald Trump put out there will be forever banned from being discussed in public on the internet, which is where everything is discussed now. So in effect, you censor the truth. And this is controlled opposition, right? That's what its function is. But if you go back to Donald Trump's first campaign for the presidency in the United States, he actually went on Infowars and was interviewed by Alex Jones on December 2nd, 2015. And it just so happens that December 2nd, 2015 was the same day as an Islamic terrorist attack consisting of a mass shooting and an attempted bombing in San Bernardino, California. So this is very similar to Kubrick's death occurring at the launch of Infowars. You have the launch of Donald Trump and Alex Jones together coinciding coincidentally with a blood sacrifice ritual, a terrorist attack in California. Okay, do you see that there? It's a symbolic ritual sacrifice designed to power Donald Trump and Alex Jones coming together, as that would tie in to the 2016 election and everything that has flowed from there as it relates to the rise of conspiracy theories, right? Pizzagate bleeds into QAnon, and QAnon bleeds into what happens at the Capitol, and now the Capitol is bleeding into the election claims and everything that happened to Donald Trump in between his terms, and finally then it's all coming together in the climax of the story where the conspiracy theories have reached the stage that Donald Trump is now this out-of-control dictator destroying the country. And people think this is just a coincidence, right? But it's like, no, we know from all the other symbolic stuff that this is a controlled demolition because he's the personification of 9/11. So it's like this ritual blood sacrifice takes place on the same day that he's interviewed by Alex Jones, because it's all related to the larger controlled demolition ritual that started with a blood sacrifice in New York City on September 11, 2001. And along those lines, there's a documentary that PBS put out, I think like 5 years ago now. Yeah, around there, called United States of Conspiracy. And you guys definitely need to watch this so you can see the scripting. You can see how they created this whole thing from the beginning, and you can see how it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. And I'll link this in the description, assuming I don't forget. But I'm going to play just a little part of this.
Jones was on a high.
They write my stuff in the speeches and Trump approves it. It's like with Trump, he goes, okay, that's right. I had these conversations with Trump. I start talking. He finishes the sentence. I finish the sentence. It's weird, man. It's weird.
And so someone like Alex Jones, who can come in with wild theories and Donald Trump repeats it as fact. You have newspapers printing it as fact. You have media and television shows repeating it as though it's fact. And then you have Donald Trump tweeting it as though it's fact. We are in a position where many Americans are susceptible to not just false information, but lies that they believe is true.
And see, that is the narrative that they will use for censorship. So it's all happening precisely by design. They create this problem, and then the solution is the censorship. And so by design, Alex Jones was created to bleed into Donald Trump as the conspiracy theorist representatives. And everything they're attributing to these characters is showing people why this is so dangerous and needs to be taken care of. This is from Wired in July of 2025, just a few months ago. Everything is a false flag now. Conspiracy theories about so-called false flag attacks have been around for decades, but as trust in media and public institutions craters, every single major news event is now being labeled as fake. And for those of you who have been around the internet for a long time looking into all of this stuff, you know there's the whole scripted contingent of controlled opposition that says everything is fake. Every single thing that comes out in the news is fake. They use the tagline, nobody died, nobody got hurt. And I hope you see how even that is filtering through into the mainstream in Wired magazine, right? They're really promoting all of these ideas that used to be on the fringe into the general public consciousness so that it becomes so obvious something needs to be done. It's by design that they're on the internet doing that because it just supports the whole larger ecosystem of conspiracy theorists that the mainstream points to and says, oh, look at that character saying that. Oh, now look at that character saying that. And I could go down the list of all the subjects, but that would take too long. You guys all know what they are, or you should at this point. Just think of a subject and know that there is a few different characters that are controlled opposition for that subject, and they are the ones that the media constantly points to and uses as the example. And because they are controlled, they say just the right things so that it fits into this censorship narrative. And speaking of Kubrick's role in all of this and Alex Jones, John Ronson is a quote-unquote journalist, and he was in that PBS documentary that I just went over. You'll get a kick out of what he says in there. But he was given access to Kubrick's estate by Kubrick's widow, and he makes this documentary on all the stuff he found there. And he's the one who went with Alex Jones into Bohemian Grove, which kind of launched him into the public consciousness in that way, right? That publicity stunt was John Ronson and Alex Jones. And that's such a great example of what I'm talking about here because, of course, they didn't sneak in there. Everybody associated with Bohemian Grove knew that was going to happen. And they allowed it to happen because it was all a part of this scripted rise of Alex Jones into the mainstream. And they will say it all started on the internet post 9/11 after he got kicked off everything else. That was traditional television. It all started on the internet, and that's the danger right now. Because of this interconnectedness, people like Alex Jones can reach everyday individuals, and it's so dangerous. We really need to get a handle on it. And they'll say, you know, before you might not have believed us, but look what they did through Donald Trump. Look what they did. How do you believe us now? We have to censor things, right? So it's all playing out precisely as they planned. And hopefully that's becoming more obvious, especially now that they're using the rise of anti-Semitism and political violence as more evidence that something needs to be done as it relates to quote-unquote hate speech. And of course, that's a weapon of mass destruction in terms of the First Amendment in the United States of America that will be used to censor speech because it's such a broad, vague term, anything can theoretically fit within it. It's all a matter of who's writing the definition of what hate speech is. So, quite the coincidence that Stanley Kubrick dies at the same time, roughly, that Infowars is launched, because that's what all of this is. It's an Infowar, and that was a symbolic blood sacrifice surrounding the ritual launch of Infowars. At least that's my take on it. Could I be wrong? Sure. And then likewise, when Donald Trump and Alex Jones officially came together on Infowars, there was coincidentally another blood sacrifice ritual, this terrorist attack in San Bernardino, California. And then likewise, their narratives came together on January 6th, and there was the ritual blood sacrifice of Ashley Babbitt. There was a symbolic death, blood spilled in the Capitol as those two movements came together. Outwardly, it's Donald Trump in the presidency spreading what they refer to as conspiracy theories, and there's Alex Jones mobilizing and funding the whole thing behind the scenes on his platform in the days leading up to that event. On and on it goes, right? They're linking these two movements together, and they do the same thing with Pizzagate, right? They have that narrative out there, and then there's the Welch character who is radicalized by what he is viewing on Alex Jones and other programs. He decides, I'm going to go shoot up Comet Pizza. And the media can point to that and say, look what they did. They radicalized this kid to go in and actually shoot up a place. Somebody could have died. It's essential to understand controlled opposition. Anyways, that's it for this one. Later.